After years of anticipation, Horizon Zero Dawn is finally upon us. Leaving behind the war-ravaged landscapes of Killzone in favor of lush mountains and brilliant sunsets, Guerrilla Games has pulled out all the stops when it comes to its latest epic. The Dutch studio has long held a reputation for delivering high-performance graphics technology and beautiful art direction, but Horizon takes things a little further. This is Guerrilla's very first open-world experience. By applying the same attention to detail on a much larger scale, Horizon stands as one of the most visually ambitious open-world games we've played. And in the coming days, we'll take a closer look at just what the Decima engine is capable of. But today, we're here to talk about one thing: performance. Now, we've tested countless open-world games across all consoles this generation, and it's true that many of them do exhibit noticeable performance problems. But with the full force of Sony behind this game and the talent of Guerrilla Games, we were hoping for the best. So today we're going to check out Horizon running on an original PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro, and determine what kind of an experience owners of either console can expect at launch. Let's get started. We'll begin here by looking at the average level of performance you can expect. Horizon aims to deliver a stable 30 frames per second on both machines, with even, correct frame pacing. We're looking first at the PlayStation 4 Pro version of the game here while exploring a random section of the world just at the tail end of a sandstorm, just one of many weather conditions you'll encounter during gameplay. What you are seeing here is precisely what you would want in a game like this: a smooth, stable frame rate with no variation along the frame time graph. It's not flawless, mind you, as you can see by the 1 or 2 dropped frames here, but it does feel extremely smooth overall, especially with the nice motion blur. If we bring in the standard PlayStation 4 and compare it to the Pro then, we see results like this. A mostly stable line with an occasional single dropped frame here and there. You may be wondering just how the two versions actually differ then. Well, the most significant visual difference between the two consoles here is resolution. The PlayStation 4 version runs at a native 1080p, while the PS4 Pro takes advantage of checkerboard rendering to deliver a full 2160p. When played on an actual 4K television, the image quality is incredible on the PS4 Pro, definitely one of the best examples of a PS4 Pro game to date. For this specific test then, we captured the game using this 4K output option. Now, we've downscaled the video when creating the frame rate analysis here to 1080p, but the performance you're seeing is representative of the game running at its highest resolution. Now, I only specify this because Guerrilla has a little treat for PS4 Pro owners in the works. By default, the Pro operates using its high-resolution 4K mode at 30 frames per second, as I mentioned earlier, but sometime around launch, an additional performance mode option will be added to the game via a patch. According to Guerrilla, this mode will favor performance over image quality, providing a smoother experience. Now, of course, we're not quite sure what this will actually mean just yet, but we'll be sure to test it when it hits. So for now, the game is just 30 frames per second, but I think it's important to commend Guerrilla for the fluidity on display here during world traversal. In many other open world games that we've tested, this type of basic traversal often reveals problems. Whether it's stuttering as the game spools in new assets or some other bottleneck, this level of fluidity does not necessarily come easily, but Horizon manages it very well. While making the comparison then, we also ran across variation in weather conditions. The game features a lovely dynamic weather system, and in this case, it was raining on the PS4 Pro but sunny on PS4 when we were capturing. But what we found here is that the weather patterns have no real impact on performance. Rain, shine, fog, sandstorms, it doesn't matter. The game runs very smoothly regardless. Of course, here you can see what happens as the weather clears up and the sun comes back out, which is cool. Now, throughout this run we did notice a few additional drops on the standard PlayStation 4, but by and large, the frame rate is smooth and stable here. It looks and runs great on both consoles. At this point though, we've played a pretty significant chunk of Horizon, and most of the experience has been very smooth, just as we've seen in this video thus far. But that doesn't mean there are not sections where the frame rate can drop. Case in point, when we first arrived in the village here, we ran across a very slight drop on both machines while walking through the crowds. What's interesting here is how perfectly the game scales up on the Pro, with drops occurring in exactly the same place to nearly the same degree. A fascinating thing to be sure. These crowded areas do generally perform pretty well, but we did encounter small pockets of slowdown like this at various points. Another moment where we encountered some slowdown occurred just a little while later, during a battle with lots of on-screen enemies and AI helpers.
Watch the Striders! It's driven them mad!
I'm running around the battlefield here like a madman, but I'm really just on the hunt for some slowdown. And, well, you can see the results here on the PS4 Pro. There are small drops that present themselves during the battle, but the game still feels smooth overall. Many of these issues are tied to the alpha and particle effects happening around the player. This battlefield here also gives us a peek at the nice volumetric lighting featured in this game. A very nice feature indeed. Okay, so how about the standard PlayStation 4 then? Well, we jumped into the same battle here on the standard system and ran across very similar results. The game continues to aim for 30 frames per second, but exhibits minor drops below that line at various points during this battle. This moment here when Aloy is slammed into a building as smoke and debris is kicked up, for instance, drops performance momentarily, which is in line with what we see on the PS4 Pro. Now, with so many particles and effects flying around and objects being destroyed, the fact that it dips by so little is actually relatively impressive. The small blips along the frame time graph have minimal impact on fluidity. And while the sequence isn't 100% like for like, we do get the general impression that the game is actually running slightly smoother on the PS4 Pro during this scene. So for the most part then, the game sticks to some very basic rules. General exploration and normal combat almost always hold a perfectly locked 30 frames per second with perfect frame pacing. It's very, very smooth. Now, once you start to fill the screen with enemies and NPCs and alpha effects and particles, however, well, small drops can rear their head, resulting in little blips just under 30 frames per second on both consoles. But there were occasional areas which exhibited a noticeable performance problem that we didn't expect. Case in point, this house. Yes, this house is somewhat of a mystery. There really isn't much going on in here, and other buildings in this area exhibit no problems at all. But here, there is very noticeable slowdown, as you can see. In fact, based on our experience with the game, this building runs slower than any other section we encountered throughout our entire experience with the game. Puzzling indeed. So if we turn around and leave the building then, and return to the city, well, the issues immediately dissipate and the game returns to the expected level of fluidity. Thankfully, this type of slowdown is extremely rare, and this house was probably the worst example we found, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. Ultimately, the key takeaway here is this. Despite its massive scale and impressive visuals, Horizon Zero Dawn delivers smooth performance and great image quality on all PlayStation 4 consoles. This is a great demonstration of how to handle release on the PS4 Pro. Owners of the newer hardware will greatly enjoy the improved image quality alongside a few additional enhancements, but original PS4 owners are not left out in the cold. All PS4 systems turn in excellent performance here while delivering beautiful visuals. Which brings us to the end of this first look at the game. We'll be back with a more complete look at Horizon in a couple days, but in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter. And until next time, this is John signing off.